All right. Welcome, Director. Glad you're here. Were you able to hear the question, the standard question that we're asking all the department heads? If not, I'll read it to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman
Okay.
Pridemore.
If you would, then introduce your associate, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Chairman Pridemore and council members, for the opportunity to discuss the Nashville Farmers Market's budget and our improvement proposals today. First, I'd like to recognize the Nashville Farmers Market board members that are joining us, as well as our staff. We have our vice chair of our board, Frank Cardenas, to my right, to your left. We also have Tyler Brown and Priscilla Norman in the audience today. And we've got Kay West, Rebecca Boynton, and Jackie Contreras, who are on our staff. We do have a couple of board members and staff members that weren't able to stay this evening. And we appreciate everything that our board and our staff are doing to make the market a great place.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Frank and I are prepared to discuss our budget with you tonight, and I'd like to kick it over to Frank for a few brief comments. Yeah.
No, the other one, that
one works?
that one works also.
Thank you, Tasha. As Vice Chair of the Board, I'm encouraged to be in a position to help shape and sustain the Nashville Farmers Market for thousands of residents and tourists that visit the market each week. The Farmers Market is a thriving, nationally recognized destination and offers a home to more than 150 small businesses. We are not just a farmers market. We are an incubator for local and regional farmers, makers, chefs, and entrepreneurs. We are a community center and a gathering place for all our neighbors, nonprofits, local businesses, and residents. We help small businesses grow and offer the largest retail platform for farmers and agriculturally based businesses in our region and the state. Our merchants create access to fresh, healthy, and affordable food and enable the community to experience our rich culture. Our merchant community of entrepreneurs ranges from the experienced to startups, includes people from all walks of life, including Americans, immigrants, and refugees, young and old, each working to achieve the American dream. Each striving for success and sustainability for their family while working hard and sharing their talent with our city. As an entrepreneur, I deeply value the role of the Nashville Farmers Market and know that it can and will help grow and sustain our local community for generations to come. It is imperative that we work together to protect and enhance the facility, merchants, and programs offered by the Nashville Farmers Market, and our board and our staff look forward to working with each of you.
Thank you, Frank. We are proud to report that our merchant community continues to grow. We have 19 restaurants and shops and more than 150 merchants participating at the market this upcoming year. We continue to experience a surge in attendance during the week and on weekends and during our special events, and this past Saturday was no exception when we kicked off peak season and more than 8,000 residents and tourists visited our facility and purchased more than 5,000 quarts of local and regional strawberries to celebrate the beginning of peak season, which is when our farmers begin filling up our stalls. So to those of you that attended that event, it was great to see you there. It is an exciting time at the Nashville Farmers Market, but as many of you know, it's also a critical time for the Nashville Farmers Market facility and our merchants. As we continue to evolve and adapt to the recently amended lease, we have prepared a budget for the upcoming fiscal year that represents a very conservative approach to revenue, considering all of the pending changes to our rental program, to our leasable space, parking, and proposed capital improvements. Our budget improvement requests include $219,800 that focus on 5 key areas: operational improvements to maintain public safety and parking accessibility, alignment with the Metro Pay Plan, improved customer service by advancing technology, establishing funding for our Green Market Initiative, which will reduce waste and integrate on-premise recycling, and increase grant funding to support our programs. And I understand that your budget book probably breaks down these improvements a bit further, so I'm happy to walk you through each of those improvements as they're presented in your budget book today. The first of those would be waste management. This is a $10,000 improvement that will provide funding to administer the Green Market program. Again, this includes on-premise waste management, recycling stations, compost collection, rain barrels, and community education. There's a salary improvement of $38,500 that will enable the market to align employees with the Metro pay plan, provide cost of living wage increases, and reclass employees that have accepted additional responsibilities and are exceeding expectations. An improvement of $87,400 will position the market to lease a satellite parking area and provide shuttle services for merchants and visitors during the proposed construction and loss of 50% of our on-premises parking. As I stated earlier, the market is visited by more than 10,000 residents and tourists each weekend and throughout the week. On-premise parking will be temporarily reduced by 50% during the construction of the Tennessee State Museum. And on an average day, on the slowest winter day in Nashville, we will fill up our current on-premises parking. So it is imperative that we work together to find solutions so that our merchants and our customers and the tourists that visit our great city can access the market. Of course, we will continue to work with MTA and promote public transit to the market, but again, we must have enough parking to accommodate our guests and our growing community. There's an improvement for $4,800 to our travel and dues line item that will provide reimbursement to employees conducting farm visits and allow staff to attend conferences and in-state meetings related to managing the market. And in the past, we have not been able to reimburse employees for those activities. However, the employees have carried on their responsibilities and conducted those activities. There is an improvement of $5,000 that would assist with strategic planning. This would help us hire a strategic planning consultant to work with the market board, staff, and community members to update our current strategic plan and initiatives to improve the market over the course of the next several years. There's an improvement of $16,000 that will provide funds to implement an industry-tested and secure cloud-based customer management system. This is one of the most exciting improvements in our budget. It could revolutionize the way we manage merchant communications and customer service and payment at the Nashville Farmers Market. The software would enable us to streamline our applications, payment services, assignment of stalls, how we administer our licensee approvals, how we invoice and track sales and payments. In addition, it will improve our ability to communicate with our merchants, reduce the use of paper, and provide a portal for merchant resources. Once the software is fully integrated, which will take us between 7 and 9 months to fully integrate it, we will be able to collect applications and payments 24/7, which will create better access to small businesses while improving our staff productivity and program services. There's an improvement of $1,500 that will provide funding for memberships and registration fees appropriate for our industry. And there's an increase of $55,000 that will provide necessary funds to increase security staffing at the market to ensure public safety, traffic control, and maintain a security presence appropriate with the number of visitors we see at the market. The other improvements as allocated in your budget book would include low cap adjustments, internal service charges, insurance billings, and the IOD adjustments provided by the Finance Office. And finally, the mayor has recommended our request to utilize $1 million of the lease amendment payout to subsidize the market's operational needs in FY17. We are a revenue-generating enterprise fund. In FY17, our projected revenue totals $952,000, and our projected expenses total $1,952,700. We recognize that this is a significant shift. And in doing so, we want to reiterate that the market board and staff have had to revisit our revenue potential due to the lack of several years of capital improvements, loss of leasable space and parking, and upcoming revisions to our rental program. We will continue to evaluate how we can increase revenue to cover a greater portion of our operational expenses. But it will require significant capital improvements, a new rate structure, and a rental program that will take us several years to implement. Again, I just want to underscore that it is not the position that the market or the board had planned for or hoped for, but it is the position that we're in currently. And on behalf of the growing and diverse merchant community and the residents and visitors that support the market, we ask for your patience, we ask for your partnership, we ask for your collaboration, your ideas, and your shared enthusiasm to ensure that the Nashville Farmers Market can continue to be a place for our community together, to celebrate, and to enjoy the bounty of our local and regional farmers and makers. And with that, we'll be happy to entertain any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, Director. Council Lady Dow, are you in the queue for this one or previous one? I refuse to, I failed to take you off. Not refuse.
You'll be
I failed.
surprised. I don't have any questions, and I won't make any comments.
Well,
I
that's
think
good.
I've said what
I just
had to
didn't want to
say.
pass you by.
That was left over from the fairgrounds.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Pulley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of brief questions. It looks like, based on the information, your revenue projections have been reduced by roughly $780,000. And when I look at some of the ways that you plan to achieve your projected revenue, one of the things that jumps out at me is a number that begs for clarification. You say you want to maintain an average of 45% occupancy in the south shed, and that number standing alone just doesn't seem to be a high number to me. So can you help explain what that all means to us?
Absolutely. So about 57% of our revenues come from our 19 restaurants and shops that have multi-year leases. And the other balance comes from the temporary merchants, our Grow Local Kitchen merchants, and our special events that primarily operate either as pop-up events in the market house or under our South Sheds. In the South Shed area, that's where our farmers, our food artisans, crafters, and flea market vendors participate. And their business is very seasonal. Their business is also, I'm going to call it a weekender business. So most of our craft and flea vendors, they have full-time jobs that they work to support their families, and they only do business at the market Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Many of our farmers operate at the market between 2 and 5 days out of the week, and then we have another group of farmers that are only single day. So it is transient in nature, and it is seasonal. The 45% occupancy goal takes into account that we'll have about 80% of the sheds full during peak season on varying different days, and about 20% of the sheds occupied during the winter season. One of the things we've put in our capital improvement request is the ability to enclose our sheds with garage doors and condition them so that we can improve the seasonality outcomes of our business. If we can condition that space, we can encourage our merchants to participate there more frequently during the cooler months and during the rainy seasons.
So even the 80% number, that seems like it could be improved standing alone, but you articulate that the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday crowd affects that number to a degree. Is that correct?
It does. So when we talk about occupancy for the sheds, I think it's important for us all to realize that it is a temporary rental program that is designed to allow people to plug in as many days during the week as they can. We do not require merchants to participate in the sheds 7 days a week. It has not been a practice at the Nashville Farmers Market. Historically, it's not anything that we're currently evaluating or planning to implement, because I do think that it would eliminate many of our vendors' opportunity to do business at the market if we required them to operate 7 days a week.
Thank you. I have two more questions for you. One, in the presentation that you gave us earlier, one of the slides that you presented moving forward has looking to operate within the less leasable space that we've given you, is increase grant funding and solicit sponsorships. Do you have a plan for this, and can you share with us a little bit about what that is to achieve that goal?
Yes. The Nashville Farmers Market has traditionally relied on a single grant. It came from TAEP, which is through the State Department of Agriculture, and it helps us with our promotional activities to support our farmers. It's also provided some funding to get market manager training for our staff so that we're in line with the Health Department and the Tennessee Department of Agricultural Standards. Going forward, as we have brought in different skill sets with our staff, we will be researching new grant opportunities. There are federal grants that are available to farmers markets and to local food systems that the market has not traditionally applied for. And we will be evaluating those grant opportunities over the course of the next 18 months. We've also been able to work with AARP and the USDA and United Healthcare to secure grant funding. This will be our second year, and we've got 2 more years after this year to secure grant funding to fund an incentive program that actually kicks off this Saturday. That incentive program will provide an incentive for people that are using their SNAP or their food stamp card to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables at the market. So for every $10 you spend with your SNAP card, you can receive up to $10 of incentives to purchase more fruits and vegetables at a market. And you can take those incentives to other participating markets as well. That is a grant. That grant will bring in a minimum of $7,500. That legislation will be in front of you this fall. You've already passed one piece of that legislation this last fall, which provided the operating funds we're utilizing now.
Okay, sounds like you do have a plan. So the last question I have, you came before us in April looking for a pretty substantial supplemental allocation to your budget. And when I looked at the history of the supplemental allocations, you've been before us, and when I say you, the farmers market has been before us a number of successive years, and it was concerning to me that the farmers market always comes back with a pretty substantial supplemental request in April. I realize you've only been here since 2014, but you did say that your revenue estimates are conservative. So that said, with this $1 million supplement or supplement that you're getting this time, do you see a need to anticipate coming before us again in April looking for more money?
I do not project a need if our budget is passed as proposed by the mayor, utilizing the $1 million of subsidy funding from the lease amendment. I do believe that the revenues that we have provided in our plan are very conservative. I think it's a smart choice to give you conservative numbers right now because there are so many variables and so many things changing around us and on our premises.
Yeah, I would agree. Conservative is nice because we'd certainly like to know it now rather than seeing about it in April. So with that, I have no further questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know how many of you have ever owned a small business, but I want to kind of put things in perspective as a small business owner. If you've ever gone to the Small Business Administration, you've asked for a loan, then you've got to put together a long history. And you have to show a pro forma, and you have to show a business plan for how am I going to not only survive, but how am I going to repay the loan that you give me. So if I may, let's put this into context. Let's say this body is the loan officer that you're coming to talk to, and the taxpayers of Nashville are the board of directors that we have to convince that this is a good investment. And I would piggyback on what Councilman Pulley just said. As we look back over the history of the farmers market, realizing that it is an enterprise operation and that we should not be subsidizing, I have to question, is the $1 million a good investment? And the answer from my standpoint would be no. simply because I don't see a way that we're going to really dig it out. I don't see a business plan that lays out something that tells the taxpayers that we won't continually subsidize them for something that not all of them maybe utilize, A, and B, are they really getting the benefit out of it that we might be able to get from utilizing that money for a different purpose in the overall budget? So with that being said, if we realize the revenue is going to be dramatically reduced for the coming year, and we look at increasing salary, we don't look at decreasing any of the staff or anything else. I'm trying to understand the justification for cutting no expenses and, in fact, raising the expenses. And how do we dig ourselves out of this hole? I don't see the answer in what I'm looking at. So maybe you can put some light on it and give me some clarification.
I completely understand your perspective. We have drastically reduced expenses over the past 2 years. We've gone as bare bones as we possibly can with our utilities, with our security services, with janitorial services, with just about everything. We've held hiring staff so that we could retain those dollars longer in our budget and use them for our operating needs. We've made a lot of adjustments so that we could operate within the budgets that we've been given. Now, over the next 18 months, the market board and staff are going to continue to evaluate how we can increase revenue while operating with less leasable space. And here are a couple things that we're going to do. We're going to evaluate an increase of the base rate for our 19 multi-year rental agreements, which will help us recoup significant new revenues from the market house tenants. This is not an overnight slam dunk plan. We're going to have to coordinate this activity with Metro Legal and with 19 business owners that have varying different dates on their lease agreements. It'll take us 2 to 3 years to exercise a new base rate plan. The last time that the Nashville Farmers Market did this, they began it in 2013 and it was completed in 2015. We took the rate from $9.39 and $9.79. People were operating at various different rates. They took it to $11.79 a square foot. The research that I have done myself, talking with local developers, talking with restaurant entrepreneurs in our area, in our district, the average square footage ranges from $19 to $22 per square foot. And they do not get common space, they do not get pest control or hood maintenance or waste management or security services or janitorial services, and they don't get their utilities paid. We have a significant opportunity to recoup more revenue from our lease tenants, and we should. I think that we've all discussed that we should not be subsidizing the small businesses in the manner that we are. And so the Nashville Farmers Market Board and staff will continue to evaluate how we can change that rate model and collect more revenues to cover those expenses. We'll also utilize capital funds that will be invested in sub-metering to accurately assess utility cost in the market house. Again, that'll recoup more funds for us as well. We'll utilize capital funds to potentially enclose and condition the 2 current open-air sheds that will help us increase occupancy and help us grow our business during the winter seasons when most people do not use the sheds currently. And we'll evaluate other programs, whether it be a mobile market or a general store, that can increase revenues to the Nashville Farmers Market on a year-round basis. And again, increase our grant funding and solicit sponsorships. The market's not been in a position legally to solicit sponsorships in the past, and we're working with Metro Legal to go through the process that will require legislation to solicit significant sponsorship dollars from the community, just as the other farmers markets do in neighborhoods all across Davidson County.
So, I guess, Mr. Jameson, you may have the answer. I think I've heard the answer on this. We have a 6-month out on the lease there, as does the state. Am I correct? Am I remembering that correctly? What's the implication if on the retailers that are there now that we have anywhere from, I'm sorry, Ms. Kennard, did you say 12 months to 36 months?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Is the same clause in their lease agreements?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Well, for me, this is challenging to even consider this, simply because I don't think the taxpayers of Nashville need to continue picking up this significant of an amount. And so I will do a little thinking and go through some numbers. Chair, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Tasha, and I appreciate the business discussion that you've been putting forward here. I had a couple of quick questions just to tighten that analysis up. The 19 multi-year tenants that you have are operating in covered, air-conditioned space currently, I'm assuming, and what's the square footage totally that's in the market house? Is that a number that you have available as opposed to the square footage that's in the sheds?
So the 19 restaurants and shops, 18 of them are operating inside the market house, and one of them is operating outside. The one that's operating outside is the garden center. The garden center takes up approximately 25,000 square feet. And the 18 restaurants and shops, I'm not going to have the exact number in my mind right now, but I'll follow up with you with an email. It's over 30,000 square feet.
So your fundamental business then really, or the majority of your revenue is coming from leasing that 30,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. And some of that square footage is common area. So that's gray that's being negotiated on that lease. And so when you're talking about increasing your revenues, it's based on releasing that 30,000 feet in particular to a market rate, okay? And then what's the age of the building? I keep forgetting, when was it built?
It was built in 1995, 1994 and 1995.
1995. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Director, if you would, if you send any correspondence, would you send it to Rosie, and she'll send it out to all the council members?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Council Lady or Vice Chair Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. Tasha, you know I love the farmers market. I'm there a lot. But continually funding a money-losing entity makes me as a business consultant cringe. And so I have to give serious consideration to everything that we have as we look at the numbers. And I'm one that likes to think outside the box. So in doing so, I've got a couple of questions.
Just two?
Would you like 11? So we're at 45% capacity of our lease space, right? South Shed.
We're at 98% inside the market house.
Right.
And then in the sheds, it ranges between 100% on a Saturday, fully occupied, starting in late May, to winter season, we might only have 25% of the sheds occupied.
Okay. I just
It
wanted
fluctuates.
to clarify. Okay. And now our parking is at 50% capacity during the Tennessee State Museum, just to restate that, right?
Yes, we will lose 50% of our on-premises parking.
Okay. If we look at $55,000 in security enhancements, $1 million in subsidies, $87,000 in parking plus capital spending, in addition to the previous years that we have been subsidizing the farmers market, it comes to my mind that we may want to consider consolidating our efforts and may want to give serious consideration to moving the farmers market to the fairgrounds, where we don't have the issue of leasable space, where we don't have the issue of the substantial reduction in parking and the increased expenses that are going to come as a result of that. So I just want to throw that out there, and maybe we need to come to terms with that when we look at our capital expenditures. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Council Lady Hurt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just looking at your personnel services and the difference in your actuals in 2015 and what you have for 2016. Was there a compensation or classification assessment done that required the salary adjustments?
Yes, we met with the Human Relations Department. It's important to note that we are a non-civil service agency, and so when this body has passed previous cost of living wage increases, or they have funded department's ability to provide performance-based wage increases, the Nashville Farmers Market has not received those funds. Mm-hmm. And so the increase that we've put in this upcoming budget is to bring our employees in line with the new Metro pay plan, just as the other Metro departments are doing. And it's also going to allow us to reclass two positions where the employees are actually working well outside of their current class, but they're at the top of that pay range, so they couldn't qualify for a pay increase without being reclassed.
Would one of those persons be reclassed as a development officer or someone that could help raise funds for you? And one of that saw the administrative services officer for?
We actually just reclassed a position and brought in a special assistant position, and that position was filled in March. And they have a wide variety of responsibilities, but one of their responsibilities will be helping us solicit sponsorships along with our marketing and program coordinator.
And my last question is regarding the repairs and maintenance. It's fluctuating and looks like, what's going on?
So let me flip over to that so I can talk directly to it. The repair and maintenance budget, there were several line items when I got to the market in 2014 where we were pulling from to repair the elevator or repair structural issues or repair the fire suppression system. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to consolidate and put that line all together. And so in doing so, we've been able to shave some expenses out of it. We've also been able to catch up on some of the long overdue repair and maintenance over the past 2 years. And we've brought in a facility coordinator in October who is helping us manage that budget very tightly, manage those projects, and make sure that they're getting done at as low cost as possible, but also keeping our facility safe and functional.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask a couple of questions regarding a couple of things that occurred in the last couple of years. When we're talking about the artisan marketplace that was going to take place before, obviously, the State Museum came in, did y'all have initial revenue figures or anticipated revenue figures there?
We did. It would bring in over $400,000 in its first year, not including any naming rights or sponsorship associated with it. The Artisan Marketplace, that project was funded. It was funded to the Department of General Services and appropriated to the Nashville Farmers Market. We had the Artisan Marketplace designed. We had an architect and a project manager assigned to it through the Department of General Services. That plan was presented to our board and received approval. We then began securing anchor tenants. We secured one anchor tenant to take 10,000 square feet of that shed. We had 12 applications for another anchor tenant to take another 10,000 feet of that shed. And then we had 30 temporary artisans and crafters apply to be a part of that artisan marketplace community. Unfortunately, as we were kicking off that project and those plans were submitted to the state architect, the state decided to move forward with relocating the Tennessee State Museum. And it halted our project, and in the best interest of our taxpayer funds and our resources, the administration, the Nashville Farmers Market, the Department of General Services had to step back from that project and reevaluate and wait until the state and the city had an opportunity to go through the lease negotiations. And now that that's been completed, our board will begin revisiting how the Artisan Marketplace project could still fit into our model without hindering our ability to operate as a farmer's market.
Is that, to your knowledge, is that 400,000 still, I guess, appropriated or allocated for that purpose?
It's my understanding we got $500,000 appropriated to the project to general services. I know that they've spent down some of those funds in project planning and in architectural renderings. They did design to build renderings so that it would be a very easy 90-day project. Some of those funds have been spent, but I do believe the balance remains. And there have been discussions about having those funds support what other capital improvements we go forward with.
Okay, and that leads me to my other question about what happened in the past. It was indicated in your presentation that in 14 there was one shed enclosure included in the capital improvements budget. Was that in a spending plan, or was it just put forth in the CIP?
That's the $500,000 I was referring to.
Okay.
There was one shed improvement provided. We asked for 4. We got funding for 1. And then we began planning that one, which was the Artisan Marketplace. And unfortunately, that project has not occurred yet.
And then I have one final question. Just currently, you mentioned in your market house, you've got among the eateries, the pub, the international market. Could you describe, and I don't even know if you'd use this as a measure, sort of how many businesses or small businesses, not really vendors per se, but businesses that rely on the facility as its primary or sole source of income or revenue, excuse me?
I can give you an assumption. So our vendors alone, the 19 restaurants and shops that we have, they are all but one small business entrepreneurs. The one that would not classify, even though they would call themselves a small business entrepreneur, would be Jenny's Ice Cream. All of our other businesses are independently owned and operated, and they rely heavily on the income that they receive from operating their business at the market. The market is in a very unique position to be in the urban core, to be right on the bus line, to be close to an urban community that is walkable, that is close to downtown, that is close enough to the interstate entrances and exits, that is also close to the tourist attractions. It's one of the things that makes the Nashville Farmers Market so unique. We are recognized as consistently one of the top 10 food halls and farmers markets across the country. So while I understand as we look at subsidizing the market and we look at potentially discussing relocation, I do think we need to recognize what a gem our city has in having a farmers market. And many farmers markets that are managed by municipalities are subsidized by their government. I do think we can do a better job in the future. That has been my goal since I came on board. That's the goal of our staff, the goal of our board. But our merchants are relying heavily on us being there where we're at so that they can continue to operate their businesses.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. Before I ask the 6 questions or actually the 6 requests that I have.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
For clarifying that.
Yeah. Let me understand, when you say the food vendors, that 19 vendors, the actual space they're using is different than the overall 30,000 enclosed space, right? They may be 50% of that or whatever. The 30,000 includes common area, all of that. Okay. So with that in that given, the 6 requests that I would ask is, number 1, the 19 vendors that you actually have there, the actual retail space they occupy. In other words, that kitchen, what they have. Number 2, common area square footage, what that encompasses. The third is the current square footage rates by actual usage, okay? The fourth would be the garden center. Is that a 12-month operation, and what is that rate? And clarify the 25,000 square feet, please. The fifth is, are you receiving any comps currently on food sales or any vendor sales that are taking place inside as other malls do require? And then the final is traffic counts on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And get those as quickly as possible, please. Thank you, Chair.
Again, just provide those to Rosie. Okay, seeing no others in the queue, Chairman Holman, if you'd like to
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
address it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This happened to be one of the committees that had a chance to chair all year, so I've learned quite a bit about the farmers market. I am a little concerned about item number 2, salary improvement, and I want to go back to what Councilor Hurt talked about. I would like for you to provide to this council a breakdown of your relationship with Department of what? Human Relation? Yeah. However you came up with this figure of 38.5, how that was broken down, and the positions that you're talking about upgrading, is that a position within, I guess, Metro Code, because that's what you're looking at? We would like to know that. In addition to that, the $1 million subsidy that you received this year, which you may not receive next year, how would that compensate for the parts of this budget that you're counting on this $1 million subsidy for? Because this is a one-time subsidy is my question. And if that's not there next year, how do you think we should be able to get by from a business standpoint? If you can provide that, that will answer most of my questions. I think you did a really good job last week of explaining some of the council members' concern about vendors and their rights and all, and I think that's satisfactory for what we needed at that point, but I am a little bit concerned about this 38.5 and the justification therein. So if you could get that to us, I really would appreciate it, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director, for being here. An impressive presentation. Certainly appreciate your time and patience. If there are no other questions, then we certainly appreciate your time, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.